Hello again. I'm Jay Haley from Palmore Institute, and this video we will be covering our senior level speaking class, week number 2. So, before we get started, let me just take a moment to say I hope everyone is doing okay, and hopefully we'll all be together again soon. In this video, we'll be looking at, like I said, at unit number 2. That is a unit which is called Big or Small, and it focuses on city life versus country life. In this video, we'll be covering some of the vocabulary that comes up in the lesson, and I'll be introducing it and talking about it a little bit. In our next video, we'll get a sample of one of the speaking tasks. Let's begin with a look at some of the vocabulary. Now, you'll find this on page 14 in the conversation section. Now, before we get too far into it, let me just introduce a little about the situation. There are 2 people talking. Their names are Mitsuko and Jin. Mitsuko comes from Tokyo. Jin is from a small town in China. And they are both students living in New York. And they're talking about their feelings about living in a big city. The first word for the vocabulary I want to look at is, it happens right in the beginning of the story where Mitsuko comments to Jin and she says, "You look down." You look down, it means that you look sad. Down is sad. If you tell someone you look down, you're saying, hey, you look sad. What's wrong? Talk to me about it. Let me know what the situation is. Okay. The next word. When they're talking about city life and country life, Mitsuko does enjoy living in the city. She is, after all, from Tokyo, but she comments, life in a big city does have some downsides. So this is a downside. So a downside is the same as saying a bad point. Okay? Something that you don't like about something. There's probably other good things, but the downside is the bad side. Quick question for you. What is the opposite? If downside means bad point, how would you say a good point? And as you can see from this slide, it is pretty straightforward. Downside is the bad point, upside is the good point. So if something has an upside, it means that's the good point that it has. A little later on, Mitsuko has been talking about all the good things that you can get living in the city. The culture, the opportunities, the restaurants, all the great things that cities have to offer. And she says, as you see in the slide here, she says, you can get anything you want here. And then Jin comments, yeah, like asthma. Okay. It's a bit of a sarcastic comment. He's saying you can get asthma by living in the city. But what is asthma? Now, asthma is a condition, a medical condition. It's a fairly serious one sometimes, although it is very common. People who have asthma will suddenly have trouble breathing. They just can't breathe in the air that they need. And it's an attack of asthma. You might see people who carry around a medicine in a little spray tube. When they begin to have trouble breathing, they inhale, and it helps loosen their lungs and their breathing passages, and they can breathe again smoothly, hopefully. So that's what asthma is. Check it in a dictionary if you want to know precisely what it is or don't understand yet. But a lot of medical words are not going to be so common in English, and you won't have to know a whole lot of medical words, but asthma is a pretty common one, and I think it's a good word for you to know. On to the next word. It's going to be selective. Now, Jin has just talked about how, yes, the city does have a lot of good stuff, but if you don't have any money, it's no good. You can't take advantage of all that stuff. And Mitsuko's comment to this is that she says what she says here, that you have to be selective. You can't do everything. Now, when we say to be selective, it means you have to be careful to choose only the best things or only the things that you really want. You can't do everything. It's life in the city. It is expensive. There's lots and lots of great things, but you probably don't have enough money to take advantage of everything. So you have to pick and choose exactly what you really want and spend your money there. The next word looks a lot like an easy word. It's that. You probably learned the word that very, very early in your English studies. However, it does have other meanings, and this is a very common one that often students are not aware about. But in this story, Mitsuko says, it's not that bad here. It's not that bad here. In this case, we use that to say, it's a different way to say so or very. So it's not so bad here. It's not very bad here. We use this in a lot of different situations. You might say, today it's a little warm, but it's not that hot. Or it's kind of expensive, but it's not that expensive. Okay, so it's often used with not that, plus an adjective. Okay? Listen for it. As you watch movies in English or watch TV shows in English, listen for this. I guarantee you will hear it before watching very long. It's very, very common. Okay. The next one, where Mitsuko cautions Jin she says, don't dwell on the problems. Don't dwell on the problems. Okay? Now, to dwell on something means to spend too much time thinking about one thing, where you have some worry or some problem that you think about and think about and think about, and it just causes you stress. It doesn't help at all if you're dwelling on the problem. You're just thinking too much about it, and you need to kind of relax, think about something else, or think about a solution rather than just spending time worrying about the problem. So if you worry about something too much, if you think about something negative too much, you're probably dwelling on that issue. And it's a good idea to either search for a solution or take a break or do something else. And the last word I want to tell you about today comes right at the end, where Mitsuko has a bright idea and she says, tell you what, let's do this. When we say tell you what, it's just a different way of saying, aha, I have an idea. The light bulb's on. Aha. Tell you what, this is probably a good time to end this video. But in the next video, I'll be sharing with you one of the conversation situations and some answers. And we will also have a special guest joining us for this conversation. So see me in the next video, where we'll be talking about city life versus country life. I'll see you in the next video.